170 years before the events of Game of Thrones, learning the dramatic political history of House Targaryen and witnessing the power of the House of the Dragon. Welcome to Easily Entertained. I'm your host, Bryson Olson, and today we are talking about House of the Dragon, the prequel series to the hit show Game of Thrones, and boy, do I love it. I was addicted from the beginning. It was so captivating to me just from the start. So why don't we start there with A New Age? Whenever a side series comes out to a show that we've seen before, there has to be something new brought to the table. And I'm going to start off first saying that I haven't seen all of Game of Thrones. I've watched like the first half of season 1, but that was like 2 years ago. So to all the Game of Thrones fans, I'm sorry, but don't worry, I have started watching it again after I finished House of the Dragon. However, I know the general vibe mostly of Game of Thrones and understand a bit how it compares to House of the Dragon. And even though I wasn't watching it when it was coming out, I remember hearing about how it was such a big spectacle that like it was making for itself. Goodness, I can't speak. The drama was interesting and there was a big event coming. I think everybody remembers seeing the Winter is Coming promotional material everywhere. That was the marketing campaign, and it's what kind of drove it to its huge popularity. House of the Dragon seems to be a bit more of a slow burn, taking the audience from Game of Thrones, but developing it in a little bit of a different way. It is not as much of a big grand spectacle that is happening, which isn't to say that we won't get any. Like, it has been building up to a war in season 3 between Rhaenyra Targaryen and Aegon and Aemond. But the lead up through these first 2 seasons has kind of been building up the tension and the stakes. And since this takes place so long before Game of Thrones, nothing is hugely crossing over. Like, you sometimes get some of the recognizable names, but that's about it, which I think is good, because you know everyone in the future will be dead because like time has just passed, but their story right now is contained, and that lets you stay interested without already knowing what is going to happen. And this is how a prequel series should be done. It has to be compelling enough and recognizable enough to bring both old fans from the original Game of Thrones series as well as new fans like myself who don't know all of the existing lore. So the story is unique and isolated, and I don't have to know Game of Thrones to enjoy this show. For those that do know Game of Thrones, they're probably going to get some little tidbits that they understand and they recognize, and that's great. That allows them to relate to both shows and still be interested, but allowing for this fresh perspective allows for a new age of audiences, both young and old, to be intrigued by its story and those within it, which brings me to Council of Characters. Let me just say, never have I thought that I would be so interested in a show that is 90% just people talking. Not everyone likes that it's just people talking and not a lot of action going on, but I have very much enjoyed it. And the reason for being so invested in this is because of the characters. The lust for power showing even in the lower houses to the petty disputes of the royal lines has got me fiending. Okay, it's got me fiending to know every little detail that's happening. I am loving it so much. I binged it all within like a week, even though every episode is like an hour, sometimes an hour and a half. Like, they are so long, but they are so intriguing. And to the people who obsessively follow the modern British royal family, I used to make fun of you. I laughed at you. I thought you guys were crazy. but I understand it now because this show is my royal family. I'm so invested in the lives of these royal lines and political standings. It's so intriguing. Just every little quarrel and conflict of interest that gets brought up in this show, it's crazy. Based on some reviews I've read, not everyone agrees with me, but I think that every character on screen gets their story shown and acted well, and I love it. I eat that up. I love seeing all this like intricate little pieces coming together. It's like a puzzle. I love it. The main conflict is obviously the most compelling of the storylines that go on throughout the show, which is between Rhaenyra and her half-brothers Aegon and Aemond, who usurped the throne out from under her with the help of their mother, Alicent Hightower. Most of the other conflicts in this show all kind of tie into this big event, with the lead up clearly being a war in season 3 for the throne. They kind of left it off ready for it to go. I believe it was actually supposed to start with a battle at the end of season 2, but I believe due to budget reasons, they had to cut it. But that's okay. There is something about it, be it the acting, which is done magnificently by literally everybody. I don't think a single person here acts bad. The character stakes through what can be lost or gained, or the real emotions that are brought by all of these elements. Everyone just seems to react to everything happening in realistic ways. Rhaenyra, I feel like, constantly wants to explode through her frustrations and the ignorance that is shown towards her by a lot of council members. But she is supposed to be queen, so she has to maintain her composure, and that's just like such a realistic feeling of wanting to say something, but she can't. Alicent wanted to bring her family to power, but now she doesn't really have any control over any of them, and they're going a little bit power hungry, and so now she fears for her children as well as her grandchildren. Aemond is furiously power hungry, and you can see it from the get-go. And you also have Sir Criston Cole, who's a knight that got promoted like by Rhaenyra early in season 1. He feels slighted by her because they kind of had a little romance thing going on during that time, and then she decided to go off and get married to another house, which is okay. But oh my god, there's just so much depth to every character and every conversation. You can just feel the frustration, the anguish, the relief, the joy, everything. It is all just interwoven in this beautiful web of a story. I love it so much when everything is just written out perfectly and you can just enjoy all of it together. I think it's magnificent. It's perfect. Chef's kiss. Even though it leaves off some more for the character stories at the end of season 2, like they leave it on kind of like a big end where it's like, doesn't feel as satisfying to be the end. But I think that's the point. I think it's a good thing. Like I said, I haven't watched Game of Thrones in its entirety yet, but from what I have seen and heard, this is just a different kind of show. I'm living for it. It's a slow burn. It lets you learn everything about these characters, and it makes for a good show. And like, it's meant to all be part of the bigger picture, and that's why they can leave it off like that. Like, yes, I know people get annoyed and they're like, what if the other seasons never get made? But it leaves things open, and I like it. It leaves you wanting more, and the wanting more is what's going to bring it back, and I love it. It just brings more reality of the dragon family to light. And that brings me to our last point, the dragon's flame. Obviously, you can't talk about House of the Dragon without talking about the dragons within the show. And obviously, the technical marvel that creates the dragons is amazing. The use of some practicals and real fire assets from like the original Game of Thrones, as well as some CGI that they use to blend everything together with reality, it's unbelievable. Like, it's truly astounding that they look this good on a TV show. Like, usually TV show budgets are a lot lower, but this budget, it's up there. It's pretty high. But what I really want to talk about is not really how they're made, but more how the dragons reflect their riders. Within the lore of Westeros, a dragon usually bonds with a rider and doesn't really just do so all willy-nilly, so they actually connect and choose their riders just as much as they are chosen. But within the storytelling and the visuals, it really reflects the riders and tells us more about them. Like, it's not just like, oh yeah, obviously they're connected. Like, it goes a bit deeper into that, like just in some of the ways they act and some of the ways they look. Take Caraxes, for example, who is ridden by Daemon Targaryen. Caraxes is nicknamed the Bloodworm, and if you don't know, like, huge fantasy lore, a worm is kind of like a dragon just without legs, and Caraxes does have legs, like all the dragons do in this show. But he's very lean and long. So he has like a very, very long neck. He's almost like serpent-like in his form, and this represents who Daemon is as a character. He is kind of a snake at times. He thinks for himself. He focuses a lot on his own self-interests and his own pursuit for power, that he doesn't really care about others and is always trying to slither his way into some kind of conflict in order to gain the upper hand for himself. And so that's obviously reflected within his dragon. There's also Syrax, who is Rhaenyra's dragon. She is very young and she's a bit smaller. And so that makes her a bit less intimidating than some of the other dragons. But that's good. That is very much like Rhaenyra's status as queen. She is young and she's a woman, and so she is seen as less intimidating, less capable, not as queen, not as ruler-esque as everyone would really like. In particular, a lot of the men on her like war council believe this. They don't really like that she's a woman trying to lead them, but they are following her because they swore an oath. But like Rhaenyra, Syrax is quick and cunning. Looks are deceiving with this pair, and like, they don't look scary, but that shouldn't really be mistaken for weakness. It is a different kind of power, and you notice that a lot throughout the story. Rhaenyra tends to be very cautious and thinks about things a lot. She doesn't rush into it very willy-nilly, and I think that's good, and it's reflected in her dragon and how they talk about her dragon. And then probably the biggest example, and like, I don't even mean that in like a pun kind of way, there is Vhagar, who is ridden by Rhaenyra's brother or half-brother, Aemond Targaryen. This one is a lot more personality based. So Vhagar is old and battle-worn, and he's the largest dragon of the dragons in the world. She is humongous, but Aemond is young. He's driven, but he's young. He doesn't have a lot of experience with a lot of things, and he rushes into things. And that is where they are very much alike. Both of them are very quick to be provoked. Their power can be great. They clearly understand war. They know how to enter battle, but when provoked, things go out of hand. Vhagar kills Rhaenyra's son. You have Vhagar being kind of provoked into fighting during, what was it? Rook's Rest, I think, is the area that they were in, where Meleys dies and Rhaenys also dies, who is the rider of Meleys. And like, Vhagar nearly like dies. Not entirely. I say nearly, like maybe that's kind of a push, but that's the time where you see Vhagar is most vulnerable and is being spent a lot. And it's just interesting. This kind of detail to include between a rider and a dragon is a very clever way for the creators of the show to give us information about the characters and just extras about them while not telling us straight out. It's very much a show don't tell kind of rule, and it's lovely. I love it. It's so good. It gives me so much joy seeing that kind of stuff. But it's these underlying details and the intriguing characters, along with the unique story, that makes House of the Dragon so successful and makes it worthy of the title Lord of the Shows. So now it's time for our rating. If you don't know our easily entertained rating scale, from least to worst, it goes garbage, once is fine, right mood, quotable, go to, and all day, every day. And I'm going to put House of the Dragon at an all day, every day. It was hard for me to shut off my TV every night because I just wanted to watch the next episode. And I'm still wanting more after the season 2 finale. And a show that can do that, in my book, is an all day, every day. It's just that captivating to me. And before we go, we also have our question of the week. This is a question to get you interested in the conversation about this week's topic. And since we're talking medieval dragon type stuff, this week's question is, what role would you play in Westeros? Would you be the hand to the king or queen? Would you be a knight, a royal, a lord, a dragon rider, anything? Personally, as I'm sure there's going to be a high majority, I would want to be a dragon rider. That's just probably the coolest thing. It would just be so sick to ride a dragon and be a lord of the sky, essentially. This just sounds mind-blowing, and I love it. I want to do that. So let us know your answer to the question of the week down in the comments. And that is it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and give us a follow so you can be notified of all the latest episodes. And until next time, bye!